This is a video for Year 4 to help them with their bus stop division. Let's start with some easy ones. Here we're doing 840 divided by 2. So starting from the beginning, these are the only types of sums that we do out of adding, subtracting, timesing and dividing, where we start with a digit on the left hand side. So let's make a start. We say, how many 2's are there in 8? The answer is 4. So 4 goes there. Then we say, how many 2's are there in 4? The answer is 2. And then we say, how many 2's are there in 0? The answer is 0. So the answer to 840 divided by 2 is 420. Moving on to another one. In this one, we've got 960 and we're dividing by 3. So first of all, how many 3's are there in 9? There are 3, because 3 3's make 9. How many 3's are there in 6? There are 2, because 2 3's make 6. And how many 3's are in 0? None at all. So, how many 3's in 960? The answer is 320. The next one's slightly harder because the initial number doesn't divide perfectly into each digit. So let's have a look at this one. How many 3's are there in 4? Well, you would be able to get one lot of 3 out of 4, but you'd have one remainder, one left over. And that remainder of 1 goes over here in front of the next digit to make the 2 into a 12. Then we say, how many 3's are there in 12? Well, if we use our 3 times table, we can say 3, 6, 9, 12, which means there are 4 lots of 3 in 12. There's no remainder, so let's carry on. How many 3's are there in 6? The answer's 2. So if we've got 426 and we divide by 3, we'd get 142. Another example, 648 divided by 4. How many 4's are there in 6? Well, there's 1, which would make 4, so that means we've got 2 left over. So our 2 remainder or 2 left over goes in front of the 4. That makes 24. Next we say, how many 4's are there in 24? And the answer to that is 6, with none left over. Then, how many 4's are there in 8? There are 2. So 648 divided by 4 would give us 162. Next we have ones which give us a remainder at the end of the sum. Let's follow this one through using the same method. How many 3's are there in 4? There's 1 with 1 left over, so the 1 goes in front of the 8 to make 18. How many 3's are there in 18? There are 6 with no remainder left over. How many 3's are there in 5? Well, 1 times 3 is 3. And then we've got 2 left over. So the 2 that are left over, we can't put them in front of the next digit because there isn't one. So we put a little r, which means remainder, and we say how many are left over. So if we've got 485 sweets and we share them between 3 children, each child will get 161 and there'll be 2 left over at the end. Another example, 689 divided by 4. Now instantly we know that there's going to be a remainder here because all answers in the 4 times table going up to infinity have to be even, and here we've got an odd number, so we know we're going to get a remainder. How many 4's are there in 6? There's 1, which makes 4, so we've got 2 left over. That makes 28 as our next number. How many 4's are there in 28? Well, 7 4's make 28 with no remainder. And how many 4's are there in 9? Well, 2 4's make 8. That gives us our remainder of 1 on the end. These ones are called tricky beginnings because it's a little bit tricky with our very first digit. So, how many 6's are there in 1? Well, there's none at all. So we put a 0 in. We've got that 1 as a leftover, so we put it in front of the next number to make 15. How many 6's in 15? Well, we could say 6, 12 would give us 2 lots of 6, and our remainder would be 3. How many 6's in 33? 5 times 6 makes 30, so we've got 3 left over. And how many 6's in 34? We would have, well, the closest we could get there would be 5. That makes 30, so we would have a remainder of 4. Next for this one, 1687 divided by 7. How many 7's are there in 1? There's 0, so we carry that 1 forward. Now you can see why it's a tricky beginning. You can't do anything with that first number. How many 7's in 16? Well, 2 7's make 14. which gives us 2 left over. How many 7s in 28? There are 4 with no remainder. And how many 7s in 7? That's 1. Next section is all about money. Now the only difference here between this kind of division, bus stop sum, and the others is that there's a decimal point here, and also the fact that there's a pound sign. And you don't actually have to put that pound sign in the question if you don't want to. Right, first step, before we do any dividing, here's our decimal point. Let's pop it up at the top as well, so then we don't have to worry about inserting the decimal point later. How many 3s are there in 4? There's 1 with 1 left over. How many 3s are there in 13? Well, 4 lots of 3 would give us 12, so we've got 1 left over to make 13. How many 3s are there in 15? There's 5. So £1.45 would be our answer. One more example. How many 4s are there in £12.64? Let's pop our pound sign in just in case you're worried where that's gone, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, 4s into 1. How many 4s are there in 1? There are none, so it's like a tricky beginning question. Carry our 1 forward. How many 4s in 12? There are 3. Oh, I forgot to put my decimal point. There's me nagging you about it and I forgot myself. How many 4s are there in 6? There's 1 remainder 2. And how many 4s are there in 24? There are 6, giving us an answer of £3.16. Now quite often these division sums are hidden away in a word problem like this one. 625 sweets shared into bags of 5. How many bags are filled? Well, here are our 2 key numbers, and also it mentions the word shared, which tells us that it needs to be a sharing sum. So let's do a bus stop for this. We've got 625, and we're going to share into bags of 5. So 5s into 6 goes 1 remainder 1. 5s into 12, you can get 2 lots of 5 out of 12, and then you've got 2 left over. And 5s into 25 will give us 5 as an answer. So if we've got 625 sweets and we need to share them into bags of 5, we will fill up 125 bags. Another example. Here's a money one. £43.20 as a lottery win is shared between 3 people. How much does each person win? Let's lay it out. Okay, we've got £43.20 and we are sharing between 3. Here I won't put the pound sign in just to show you that it doesn't actually affect the answer. Let's put our decimal point in. I remember to do it this time. 3s into 4. How many 3s are there in 4? There's 1 remainder 1. How many 3s are there in 13? There's oh, I put 2 there. Let's erase that. How many 3s in 13? 4 3s would make 12, and we've got 1 left over, so the 1 moves forward. How many 3s in 12? There are 4. And how many 3s are there in 0? There are 0. So each person in the lottery will get £14.40. And the last one. 2,610 biscuits are shared between 5 children. I wonder if they're the children that come to the Year 4 groups. Boy, they must have been hungry today. Let's see. How many 5s are there in 2? There are none, so we carry that 2 forward. How many 5s in 26? Well, 5 5s would make 25, which means we've got 1 left over, which we carry forward. How many 5s are there in 11? Well, 2 5s make 10, and we've got 1 left over. And how many 5s are there in 10? It's a 2. So each child will have 522 biscuits and probably an enormous bellyache later.